The storm had already begun when Claire closed the cabin door behind her. The wind howled through the pine forest, rattling the wooden structure as if trying to pry secrets from the walls. She was barefoot on the cold floorboards, her hair damp from the rain, and her thin white shirt clung to her body. She hadn't expected Ethan to still be awake. He was near the fireplace, shirtless, sweat glistening on his chest after chopping wood just minutes earlier. His eyes lifted when he heard the door. She held his gaze, but neither of them spoke. The silence between them was louder than the storm. Ethan was her husband's son, 20 years old, tall, lean, with sharp features that seemed to have hardened since she married Richard the previous year. Claire was 35, married to a man 10 years her senior, who was now absent, braving the rain to help a neighbor with a truck stuck in the mud. The door clicked shut behind her. The moment was sealed. "I didn't know you were still up," Claire said, her voice low, trembling. Ethan didn't respond right away. He just stared at her, his eyes slowly drifting from her wet shirt to the outline of her thighs beneath the towel she held loosely. "You should change. You're shivering," he said finally, without moving. She approached the fireplace, the crackling flames the only sound between them. As she crouched to warm her hands, she felt him behind her, too close. The heat from the fire was nothing compared to the heat rising up her spine from his presence. "Couldn't sleep," Ethan added, now standing behind her. "It's too noisy outside." Claire turned slowly to face him. Her eyes searched his, looking for hesitation, guilt, anything, but found nothing. Just a faint glimmer of something dangerous. Or maybe it was just curiosity. Or desire. "I can't believe your dad just left like that," she murmured, not stepping back. Ethan took a step forward, his chest almost brushing hers. The tension between them was electric, palpable, thick in the air. "He trusts you," Ethan whispered. "And me." A pause. "Should he?" she asked, almost inaudible. He didn't answer, but she saw it, the jaw tightening, the glint in his eyes. Her question had struck something deep. He reached out, lightly touching her waist, as he adjusted the logs in the fire. She held her breath. When he turned back, they were nose to nose. Claire stepped back, too quickly, too obviously. She felt the flush creeping up her cheeks. I should change. But as she turned toward the hallway, a clap of thunder cut the power. Darkness. She froze. Ethan was still close. "Don't move," he said calmly. "There's a flashlight around here." In the dark, every breath, every heartbeat seemed louder. She couldn't see him, but she felt his presence. Her hand found the wall. Then his fingers brushed her shoulder. Just a touch. But it wasn't casual. It lingered. "I can find it," she said, not trusting her own voice. "I already did," he replied from behind her. The flashlight flicked on, illuminating only his face. The rest of his body remained in shadow. Hers did too. He raised the beam slightly, just enough to let his gaze slide over her body once more. Neither of them spoke. She didn't stop him. The dim flashlight beam isolated them from the rest of the cabin, as if only they existed, trapped in a space between reality and something darker. Claire stood still, her breathing uneven. Ethan, motionless, took in every detail of her under the yellow light. There were no more sounds from outside, just the crackle of embers and the pulsing tension between them. "You shouldn't look at me like that," Claire said, her voice breaking at the end. "You shouldn't let me," Ethan replied, taking a slow step forward. The distance between them was small, and shrinking by the second. Claire could smell him. Sweat, wood, wet earth. It was primal. Real. The kind of scent the body recognizes before the mind accepts. She reached out and gripped the doorframe, trying to anchor herself. He wasn't touching her, but every movement felt like a touch. The silence was heavy, thick as steam. "This can't happen, Ethan." "It can't," he echoed, but without conviction. "But will it?" She should have said no. She should have gone to change, locked the bedroom door, and waited for Richard to return. But her body had already answered. The hairs on her neck stood on end, her skin hypersensitive, her heart racing as if she were about to leap off a cliff. Ethan reached out slowly, as if afraid to startle her. His fingertips grazed her waist. A touch so light it felt like a thought. Claire shuddered. She didn't pull away. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered, staring into his eyes. "I know exactly." Then he pulled her, slowly, without force. But she went. And when their bodies met, it was as if time took a step back. Claire cupped his face, searching his eyes for a reason to stop. She found none. Their lips met, tentative at first, as if there were still a chance to pull back. But the heat grew. The touch deepened. Hands slid, explored, discovered. Claire let the towel fall. The shock of skin against skin made them both catch their breath. Ethan pressed himself against her, guiding her slowly toward the couch near the fireplace. The flashlight rolled to the floor, tilting sideways, casting only shadows. The outlines of legs, bodies, movements. Everything was silent except for muffled sighs, the halting touches of restrained urgency. "Do you want me to stop?" he murmured in her ear. Claire didn't answer with words. She held him tighter. Ethan's fingers traced her ribs, mapping every breath, every tremor. She trembled, not from cold, but from something that mixed desire, fear, and a kind of regret that hadn't yet dared to form. Their bodies fit together with a disturbing ease, as if the scene had been written somewhere long before it happened. Claire arched beneath him, her half-open eyes meeting his, and for the first time, there was no denial, only acceptance. She pulled him by the nape, tasting danger and youth on his lips. There was no room left for rationality, only impulse, only heat, only now. Ethan explored her body with a mix of curiosity and reverence. He wanted to understand, to feel, to memorize. Every touch was a question, every sigh, an answer. "You were always watching me," she said between kisses, her voice hoarse, a crooked smile on her lips. "And you never looked back. Until today." She cradled his face with both hands. "I was afraid of what I'd see." And she saw it. Everything. The desire. The audacity. The impatient youth. But also something deeper. Loneliness. Need. A hunger for affection. And Claire saw herself reflected there. Deep down, they were two different bodies trying to fill the same voids. They moved as if they were part of each other. With every touch, a line between right and wrong was erased. With every stifled moan, a secret was born. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying not to think of Richard, of the marriage, of what would come next. Because in that moment, that night, there was no next. Only them. When their bodies finally stilled, wrapped in sweat and silence, Claire lay with her head on Ethan's chest. His heart was still racing. So was hers. Outside, the storm showed signs of easing. But inside her, a new kind of storm was beginning. She rose silently, picked the towel off the floor, and wrapped it around herself. Before heading upstairs, she cast one last glance at him. Ethan stared back, his eyes dark and intense as the night itself. "This changes everything," she said. "I know." The next morning, the sun rose with a calm that contradicted everything that had happened hours before. Light filtered through the cracks in the kitchen window, painting the wood in golden hues, as if trying to erase the sins of the night. But Claire hadn't slept. She sat at the table, still in her nightgown, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold. Ethan's bedroom door remained closed. The silence between them now was different. No longer sensual, but tense, suspended. What they had done couldn't be undone, or forgotten. When he finally emerged, wearing a simple t-shirt and his hair still mussed, Claire's eyes sought his. But Ethan looked away. The tension was unbearable. "My dad texted. He'll be back this afternoon," he said, his tone too neutral. Claire nodded, gripping the mug tighter. "That was a mistake," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Ethan approached slowly, leaning against the kitchen wall. He seemed calm on the outside, but his eyes held restlessness, restrained desire, insecurity, obsession. You want it to be a mistake, but it wasn't. You knew what you were doing. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping the floor with a sharp screech. "Shut up, Ethan. This can't happen again." But as she spoke, her voice shook, and it wasn't just anger. It was fear. Fear of not being able to resist. Fear of wanting it to happen again. He moved closer, unhurried, like a predator who already knew the path. Claire backed up until she hit the kitchen counter. "He'll notice," she said, her gaze fixed on the window, as if expecting Richard to appear any moment. "Only if you want him to. You think this is a game?" "No, I think it's inevitable." His hand found her hip. Claire shuddered, her eyes closing for a moment, as if trying to escape herself. But she didn't pull away, and that scared her more than anything. Last night it was wrong, but I didn't stop. And neither did you. This is dangerous, Ethan. My husband is your father. This could destroy everything. He leaned his forehead against hers, his breath warm and unsteady. "Then why are you letting me touch you again?" Claire grabbed his wrist, trying to push him away, but her hand trembled. Her nails dug lightly into his skin. She hated him for it, for knowing the power he had. But deep down, she hated herself more for liking that power. Before she could respond, the sound of a car in the distance cut through the air like a blade. Richard was coming back. Claire shoved Ethan hard, stepping back as if she'd been shocked. "Go to your room. Now. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Got it?" Ethan didn't argue, but as he passed her, he said in a low voice, barely moving his lips, "This isn't over, and you don't want it to be." Then he went upstairs. Claire stood there, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the front door. The car's engine grew closer. She took a deep breath, and she knew nothing would be the same. And the worst part? She didn't want it to be. Richard came in with wet boots and a soaked jacket, dragging his suitcase and smiling as if the world were exactly as he'd left it. "That rain nearly killed me, but I got everything sorted with Ray." "His truck almost went off a cliff," he said, tossing his keys onto the entry table. Claire ran to him and hugged him. A hug too long. Not out of longing, but out of necessity. She needed to hide everything her body still remembered. She needed to act like nothing had changed, like Ethan's taste wasn't still lingering in her mouth. "I was worried," she said, kissing his cheek. "I thought you wouldn't make it back today." Richard laughed. "You know me. I wouldn't leave my girl alone for too long." His girl. The phrase made her flinch inside. She no longer knew who she was. During dinner, Claire cooked too much, talked too much, gestured too much. She tried to fill the space between the three of them with noise, as if silence would betray what had happened. Ethan ate quietly, eyes on his plate, but she felt his gaze on her the whole time, like a hidden ember under ashes. Richard, cheerful, noticed nothing. Not the way Claire avoided eye contact with Ethan. Not the strange silence between them. But Claire knew. It was only a matter of time. After dinner, she went to wash the dishes while Richard showered. She was so tense she nearly dropped a wine glass at the slightest sound behind her. It was Ethan. He approached without a word, leaning against the sink beside her. His scent hit her again. Clean, young, cruelly familiar. "You're playing with fire," she whispered, not looking at him. "You lit the match." She kept washing the dishes, her hands shaking under the hot water. "You need to stop. Then say it was just one time, that you don't want more." Claire dropped the plate and dried her hands quickly. She turned to him, her eyes blazing with fury, and something even more dangerous. Want. "You're a kid, Ethan. A kid messing with something that could destroy everything. You think this is a game to me?" They were inches apart. She felt his breath against her skin, felt the magnetism pulling her body even as her mind screamed to run. One wrong move, and Richard would see them. If he finds out, I'm gone. And you'll be left with the guilt, she said, her voice tight. If he finds out, Ethan murmured, it'll be because you wanted him to. Claire's eyes widened, startled. For the first time, she saw something too dark in him. A kind of emotional control, almost manipulation. But instead of retreating, her heart beat faster. You want him to see? Want him to catch us? Ethan didn't answer with words. He stepped back and walked away, leaving Claire alone, breathless, her knees trembling. Upstairs, the shower turned off. Claire grabbed a cloth and started scrubbing the counter with exaggerated force, as if she could erase everything that had just happened. But the worst part was knowing she didn't want to erase it. It was late at night. The whole house was asleep. Or at least it should have been. Claire was in her bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, her nervous fingers tracing her bare knees. She wore a nightgown too short to sleep alone in, too long to be innocent. Every second was a battle between desire and fear. Her body craved something her conscience rejected. She heard the door to the next room creak. Bare feet, light steps, a pause outside her door. Claire didn't move. The doorknob turned. Ethan stepped in. No words, just looks. She didn't resist. She stood and went to him, her heart racing, her stomach ablaze. He pulled her by the waist with restrained urgency, and their lips met with a hunger that had been suppressed for days. His hands slid down her back, rediscovering the path they already knew. The door closed behind them. The room filled with hot breaths, clothes hitting the floor, bodies pressed together in silence. Claire no longer thought. She acted, driven by something between guilt and pleasure. It was cruel. It was wrong. But it was real. And then, the sound that shattered everything. The door opened again. Hard. Richard. Standing in the doorway, eyes wide. His shirt was unbuttoned, his belt still dangling from his pants. He'd probably woken to some noise. He hadn't said anything yet. He didn't need to. The silence that followed was the worst of all. Claire, still in Ethan's arms, turned slowly. The blood drained from her face. Ethan's hands fell from her body in an automatic, futile gesture. Too late. Richard stared at them as if the ground had vanished beneath him. My God, he muttered, his voice hoarse, broken. Claire took a step forward, her legs shaking, her mouth open, but no sound came out. Richard, shut up. His voice was now a thunderclap. Don't you dare. The silence shattered into 1,000 pieces. Ethan tried to speak, but Richard was faster. He lunged at him, shoving him against the wall with force. Claire screamed. Ethan didn't react, just closed his eyes, as if accepting a blow that never came. Richard stepped back, his eyes brimming with tears, of rage, betrayal, disbelief. My son. My damn son, he whispered. And you, Claire. I trusted you. I loved you. Claire fell to her knees. She wasn't crying. She was in shock. The weight of the destruction crashed down all at once. Richard left without another word. The sound of the front door opening, then slamming shut, echoed like a gunshot. He was gone. Forever. Claire and Ethan stood there motionless, stripped not just of clothes but of any defense. Now they were naked before the truth. She looked at him. He was sitting on the floor, his face buried in his hands. You shouldn't have come tonight, she whispered. Ethan lifted his eyes. You opened the door. Claire stood, walked to the window, and looked outside. The night was cold, fog blanketing everything. There was no way out, no home left. She took a deep breath. For the first time in days, she felt no more desire, only emptiness.